This is on page 22. And we have the new Reverend Jim Wilkin here, newly ordained.
Thank you. Bishop Johnson, I'm Jim Wilkins, speaking to Resolution 2015-20 with, oh boy, we were going to do some, we had a couple of texts that we were going to put up. I don't know if they're ready. We have two short additions.
You're just going to have to say them.
Okay,
I wouldn't
that's
mess
fine.
with the screen now if your life depended on it.
That's fine.
Oh, there it is. Oh, okay.
Oh, good.
What do I know? I just work here. Okay, fire ahead.
After section 2.H, we want to make this addition of, in addition to the above clearances, the list of all the clearances that volunteers and employees who work with children have to get. In addition to all the above clearances, all employees and volunteers of EPA conference camps shall obtain all clearances required for accreditation by the American Camping Association. And then between lines 224 and 225, insert, EPA conference camps shall follow the supervision standards required for accreditation by the American Camping Association. And these were requested by the Camping Board.
Okay, so these are editorial additions based on camping board affiliations, and it's not substantive to our life particularly.
Yes. So I'm speaking to Resolution 2015-20 with those additions on behalf of the Safe Sanctuaries Committee. The resolution is relating to Safe Sanctuaries policy, and I move for the adoption of the resolution with the additions.
Would you like to speak to it for any reason?
Yes, please,
Okay.
briefly. Most people are aware that our conference policy that we adopted in 2008 and amended in 2010 needs to be changed because of legislative changes that were put through by the Pennsylvania legislature in response to the Jerry Sandusky case. So the Safe Sanctuaries Committee has looked at the previous policy, and we've offered this as a revised one with two major areas of difference. The first is the requirements for screening and selection of volunteers and employees. We took the wording from the new law, cut and pasted it directly into our policy. So we really can't play around with that wording because that's the law. The other area is in the area of reporting of suspected child abuse. And again, the law has changed. Our old policy said each church should have a person designated to receive an allegation of abuse, and that person would report to the state. That is no longer the law. All of our volunteers and employees who work with kids are now mandated reporters and must make the report themselves. Again, we cut and pasted directly out of the law and put it in our policy. Those are the two primary changes. There's one other thing that I would just like to mention. Some of you may have noticed that we took the words vulnerable adults out of this policy that used to be in the old policy. It is not because we don't think that's important. It's because we do think it's important. And I, being the one that probably did the most drafting of the other policy from before, would be the first to say that we didn't do a good job of dealing with vulnerable adults, and we want to. And as we looked at this policy, vulnerable adults, there are different laws, there are different public agencies that deal with alleged abuse of vulnerable adults, there are different reporting requirements, and rather than trying to mix them all up into one policy, we said let's take the children out and do that. And Dr. Currian has offered to call together a group of folks represented from Safe Sanctuaries, older adults, disabilities, eye care, and any others, that over the next year we would look at ways that we can give guidance for churches to protect vulnerable adults.
Okay, I see folks, I saw somebody in microphone number 4. You were first. What?
Rob Timlin, Rules Church. Three-pronged question. Everything in here effective immediately upon passing?
It's actually already in effect.
Okay, including the camping amendments?
The camping amendments would go into effect right away, yes.
Would any of these things apply to our mission trips to Methodist facilities like Redbird? Thank you.
If it's a mission of one of our churches, yeah, it should apply because your church is going, and it's a mission of your church. It's a ministry of your church, so yes.
Okay, I have some, number 3, is it a question, a speech for or against? What's your business?
Just a tiny clarification. As a longtime ACA member, it's the American Camp Association. Lynn Yeager from Chestnut Hill United, lay person.
Editorial change. Thank you.
I apologize for that. Thank you.
Microphone number 7.
Yes, my name's Tim Thompson Hall from Ardmore in the Central District, clergy. I have a question for Jim. I guess the question is, if you are safe sanctuary trained in, let's say, in Ardmore, but now that we have mission connections, are you permitted to, or are you qualified, credentialed, and accepted to do a ministry in one of the collaborating churches?
We don't have a formal, like a document or a certification. Everybody needs to be trained. So what I would say would be, if there is something specific about the other church that you're going to, that person would have to be made aware of it. But in general, the training is in terms of things that are universal, the 2-adult rule, recognizing signs of abuse, so that would carry over. The only thing would be, like I say, if there's something specific about a particular facility, somebody coming in would need to be made aware of that.
So if a person is trained for a camp, would they then de facto be qualified or trained at a local church?
I'd have to look at what you're talking about, being trained by the camp, and what that would entail. We could talk individually on that. The church, again, might have some specific things about their facility or program. So I'd rather than make a blanket statement about that, I'd rather take that on an individual basis.
Mm-hmm.
Microphone number 3.
2 questions. Diana Risley, Equalizing Delegate East District. There's a few things in here that are a little different than when we took the training. Under the definition of direct contact with children, what is your definition of routine contact?
Yeah, and the question isn't really what my definition is, it's what the state's definition is, and that's very difficult to nail down. What I would do is refer you to a document that is on our conference website. It is published by the Department of Human Services. It's a volunteer frequently asked questions document. And it specifically says that the legislation hasn't clearly defined some of these terms. And what it does is it takes you through kind of a rubric looking at the responsibilities of each volunteer or employee that you're going to be using and determining whether or not they need to get clearances based on this rubric. We used to say that if somebody came and worked for a week, for instance, in VBS, as long as they were with somebody else, they wouldn't need clearances. We can't do that anymore. So this document takes you through a rubric that helps you determine whether or not an individual needs the clearance. I had a long conversation with our conference attorney, and we both agree that there's no way that I can give you a blanket statement about that. You need to look at the specific responsibilities that each person is doing and the kind of contact that they have with kids using this document that you can get off online. And if you have a question one way or the other, whether you need the clearances, you are better off getting the clearances.
The second question is, for employees, can you clarify, do they need both Pennsylvania and FBI clearances? Is
Yes.
it one or the other based on the 10 years?
The 10 years doesn't come into play at all for employees. All employees need Pennsylvania State Police, the Child Line, and the FBI. The 10 years comes in for volunteers. Volunteers need the same clearances as employees, except can waive the fingerprinting if they sign an affidavit, a sample of which will be on the website within the next week or two, stating that they've been a resident of Pennsylvania for 10 years and have not been convicted of any of the list of offenses that would disqualify somebody.
And the fingerprints stay on record forever. You don't have to do those
You have to do them
every 3 years.
every 3 years. That's what the law says. We have no way of getting around that. That's not our decision. That's the law.
Wow.
All right, microphone number 6.
Microphone. Hello. Bernd Kiefer, Senior Pastor, Calvary Moton. Our Director of Christian Education over the last 2 summers was able to use an electronic database for clearances, and when we checked, we were told that that was not applicable, and we needed to go to the state forms and do the mailing through snail mail. Is there, in fact, a prohibition against electronic registering and running the background checks? Because we do between 40 and 80 clearances a year, and doing it online is much more cost-effective and efficient for us rather than mailing it that many back and forth.
Yeah, the frequently asked questions document gives instructions for how to get both of those. I don't know if you were talking about the state police or the child line. The state police is very easy to go on, and you don't need to register with them or anything like that. You can just get them online and get your state police check immediately. As I understand it, if you're doing a lot of the child line ones, you are able to set up an account. I've never personally done that, but there are instructions in this frequently asked question document about that.
Yeah, we were interested in the criminal and the FBI. We had a supplier who had a database that was equal to the FBI. That was why it was opposed.
Yeah, right. You can't. You've got to go directly through the state police and directly through the. Well, it's Cogent is the organization that you go through to get it, but you can't use like a private background check service for this. You've got to go directly through the official sources that are listed in this document that you get online.
So it is snail mail. All right.
Microphone number 4. I'm sorry, what? You can do both electronically, is that right? Yes.
Like I say, I have not done the child line electronically. I understand you can become a registered user of that, and
Each
then
person has to register to do child line, but you can do an individual one. I just did my son last week for Boy Scouts.
Okay.
They can both be done online.
Okay.
Microphone number 3.
Vicki Allen, Clergy, East District.
There we are.
I just want to suggest an amendment to line 135 so that you can insert a period after the word abuse. Child abuse takes many forms: sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect. And so if you say, if someone's in the database for child abuse, sexual abuse is not an easy form of abuse to reform from, and we have that if they committed the abuse 6 years ago, then they can be hired. I would suggest that if they're as a registered abuser, that they should not be hired by the church.
The wording there and the punctuation is all directly out of the law. So my preference is to leave it exactly as it is in the law rather than to tweak with it. Certainly, if you see something come up that you're not comfortable with, you don't have to hire somebody or use them as a volunteer. But for that request,
Okay, well, that was a motion to amend.
That was a motion, I'm sorry.
So if the motion to amend,
I'm
it needs
sorry.
a second. Is there a second? Did I hear a second? Okay. Well, then we will need to debate this. Basically, I think you gave your speech while you were making your amendment. This is basically you want to not allow people to come back in who have done sexual abuse. Is that the gist of it?
Yes.
Number
But it didn't get a
3?
second, did it? It did, okay.
Say it again.
Yes, that is correct. I wanted to amend it that if someone comes up in the database as having abused a child, then the church should not consider hiring them to work with children.
Ever.
Right.
Okay.
even though it's been over 5 years. That just means in the last 5 years, there is no record of them abusing a child. But if they've already abused a child, do we want to take the chance of hiring a founded abuse person to work with our children?
Okay.
I see what you're saying.
That clarifies what the amendment is. Do I have a speech against or in favor? You're against. Number 2.
Marilyn Wilt, an equalizing delegate from the Southeast District, and I'm very sorry that I didn't say that last time, because I know I asked that. Anybody who tries to get clearances and is accused of abuse or found guilty of child abuse, they won't pass the clearance. So this is really a moot point, don't you think?
Okay. Any speaker in favor? Okay, seeing none, is the body ready to deal with this amendment? Okay, if you'll pass the amendment that was going to be a more specific about child abuse, sexual abuse, lift the hand and say aye. If not, same sign. Okay, it does not carry. We're back to the original. Anything else for questions, comments? Number 1, microphone number 1.
Thank you. Jeff Kapp, pastor, Avon Zion United Methodist. Jim said
Nice
twice. Jim has said twice that these are taken directly from the law. So I'm speaking for. I think we need to pass this amendment. Clarifying questions can be brought later after this resolution is passed.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure people know what they're voting for too. I would love to get on to another vote, but I also think this is people's lives. So we'll look at number 3 and see where we're going. Number 3.
Clarifying, Chris Eden, clergy, Beams Church in Southwest District, line 332.
332.
Very end. It says compliance with this policy shall be a matter of record at each annual conference. Being that we're at annual conference, could you enlighten me as to what that means?
332.
Yeah.
Charge
conference. Each annual charge conference.
Okay.
There has been, in my recollection, a question as part of all the charge conference materials that are put together by the pastor of the church in preparation for charge conference, whether or not
we have a policy.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Then I call the question.
Is he allowed to do that? No. We had a 1 against. And our rules say you have to have 2 and 2, but if there's nobody asking, we'll see what the other business is at the other microphones. Microphone 1, what's your business?
Yes. My name is Charles Pinkert from the Central District. When you started, I have a question, actually. What it is when you first started your presentation, you said you came up with a friendly amendment on 2H, but I mean, it came up on the board and flashed and went away. I never even got a chance to read it. Was there any information or anything printed for that friendly amendment?
It's not printed up. It's up there again. All it does basically is say that our camping programs, in addition to the clearances that are required by churches, they're doing some extra background checking for people that work at our camps. And they wanted conference to be aware of that. They wanted it to be transparent, because the past year they've had some folks from churches come in and, well, why do you need this from us? Because we don't need this at our church. And so they wanted it to be transparent. And then the second one is that the supervision standards in a camp setting, it's a different kind of an environment than within a church. Just like the Boy Scouts have gone to the trustees and gotten permission to use very well-developed standards of supervision by the Boy Scouts when they're in camping environments. So too, the American Camping Association has those kind of guidelines for supervision, and so we wanted to make that, the camping board wanted to make that a part of this policy and have conference as a whole understand that and know that. That's the reason.
Microphone number 6.
My name is, My name is Celeste Schiller. I'm from East District, Cornwalls. I'm for this resolution, but I do have a point of clarification if you could help me. I'm a registered nurse, and I've recently gone through the state's new mandatory education for mandatory reporters. My question is, and maybe I just didn't read that clearly, will mandatory reporters within the context of the church also be required to go through the state's various websites to obtain that?
No, they're not required. The folks who are required to go through the training that is approved by the state are folks who are working for organizations that contract with the state or Department of Human Services, those sorts of organizations, or folks who are licensed. We are making available the information of how to do that. It is a very good training.
It's fantastic
It's
training.
free. It's online. It's about 3 hours. If you don't have a child welfare background, a lot of folks who have gotten through it in a couple hours. So we're recommending it, and it can be used, but it's not required for everybody by the law.
I would highly recommend it
I would too.
for those of us. Thank you.
Microphone number 3, what's your business?
Clergy, Simpson Fletcher in Philadelphia. I also work for the Department of Recreation in Philadelphia, and we run a day camp every summer. We are required to have all employees do the FBI, the state, and the criminal background check. It doesn't matter. And this year they implemented a new policy. We hired youth work from the Youth Network organization. All the kids 14 and up, they have to take a background check. And it has been my understanding that you can get the FBI, you can pay for it online and then go get fingerprinted. You can do the criminal, but you can't get the child line online. You can take and register and everything, but you have to still send that in. Just wanted to...
That's information.
And we do this every year.
The chair, I'd like to say the friendly amendment you see up there, that's an editorial amendment because we don't do friendly amendments, but that's the same kind of idea. We've got to put that in there because that's what camps are requiring. Microphone number 3, again.
Back, Chris Eden, clergy, Beams Church. Can I move to vote?
Can we do that? No one's at the mic, so we're ready. The body's ready to vote. If you would approve this resolution number 20, as with the piece about camps added in, lift the hand and say aye. If not, same sign. Thank you. Good, important questions. We still have number 21 to deal with, which is similar, so hang on to your hats, but we're